So it looks like McLaren have now removed yet another driver from their lineup, being Alexander Rossi. He is now out of a seat for 2025, and he will be replaced by Christian Lundgaard, who is currently at Rahal Letterman Lanigan. That's always like the longest name to say. Now, I will say, with so much controversy or drama or whatever you want to say it at McLaren, with releasing David Malukas, then bringing on Theo Pourchaire, and then saying he's going to drive full time, and then releasing him, and then him being replaced by Nolan Siegel, and then now Alexander Rossi is being let go. Now, I will say the difference with this one is Alexander Rossi was contracted for 2 seasons, and he will fulfill those 2 seasons. So in this regard, I don't put it in the same camp as the David Malukas or the Theo Pourchaire, just because the contractual obligations were met. And if you look at what Rossi was saying, and this is what happened with a lot of drivers in motorsports, and I'm going to specifically highlight Formula One, because a lot of times when a Formula One driver doesn't make it, or they do make it, it's because of money, right? A lot of the former Formula One drivers who are currently in World Endurance Championship, who are currently in Formula E or IndyCar, a lot of the drivers didn't make it through, or couldn't get a seat, or couldn't hold on too long of a seat, is money, sponsorship. Like they didn't have enough sponsors coming to them. So with Alexander Rossi, it seemed like there were talks of a potential renegotiation for to renew the contract, but what didn't line up was the sponsorship side. You have Alexander Rossi here saying that it wasn't on the second round of negotiations. It was mostly on the business side of things that really didn't come through, and there was too many hurdles. And that's just a very, very common problem for many drivers. Is you not only have to be talented, you have to be popular and bring money. Not popular, but you have to bring money, whether it's backing from your parents, your family business, or you do bring sponsors. That has a lot more weight than your talent, right? If there's a driver that has more funding, more banking, more sponsors, versus a driver that has more talent but doesn't bring as much money, more often than not, you'll go to the driver with the money, because it gives you more resources. It gives you a better hand to work with when it comes to actually fighting and competing. And yes, like maybe the driver itself isn't the greatest, right? But at least like you get more resources to deploy them somewhere else in your organization to give yourself a fighting chance. Because, I mean, motor racing is very expensive. Like it's not an accessible sport, right? It's for the ones that have money. Like Nolan Siegel has his dad, who is a VC, a successful VC, and that's where a lot of the money comes from, right? Like that's just the name of the game with racing. You have to bring money. There is no ifs, ands, or buts. You have to bring money. So in that regard, I will say it's not the same, because the contracts were fulfilled in terms of it was a 2-year contract, and that's just a downside. Now, like I said I have a previous video that I made of who's the most successful team in IndyCar, and it just comes down to 3 teams. Like there's still only 3 big teams. There's Chip Ganassi, Andretti Global, and Team Penske, right? But of those 3, there's only 2 actual teams that have won the most championships, and that's Chip Ganassi and Team Penske, right? And of those 2 teams, there's only but a handful of drivers that are actually competing and like continually winning in the series, right? It's going to be Scott Dixon, Joseph Newgarden, Will Power, Alex Palou, and like, who else? We get the point. It's only really a small handful of people. So where does, McLaren now has the youngest driver lineup in this series, in Nolan Siegel, Pato O'Ward, and now, in 2025, Christian Lundgaard. And Pato being the veteran driver now, because I think he's like 25 or 26 years old. And, if you look at the Formula One landscape, where what was like 2 or 3 years ago, like it's the youngest set of drivers across all teams that Formula One ever had. So are they trying to have that mindset of like, hey, like let's really get some young drivers, let's get away from the veterans, drivers of older age, and let's start fresh and really lock in these drivers, and let's really develop these drivers over the next 3-5 years and really build up a team from the ground up. Like I can see that perspective. Now, anytime you let go of any driver, there's always going to be a group or a sentiment of like, oh no, not him. Oh no, like he deserves a seat. That's always going to happen, right? Like, there's always going to be a group of people that don't like the decision, because it's never fun to see anyone leave a sport because you just end up feeling bad for them. So that's always going to happen. Now, Christian Lundgaard going to McLaren, right? Most people would say Arrow McLaren is a top 4 team, but not for wins, not for championships, right? Because I mean, how many wins have they had since they joined McLaren? Since they rejoined IndyCar? Not many, right? So I'll put them up there as a top 4 in terms of resources, in terms of like they have money, and I feel like they've really helped level up IndyCar in terms of like general fan base, because like, oh look, it's McLaren, or they're also in, they're in F1, they're also in IndyCar. So in that perspective, yes. But is Christian Lundgaard really in that better of a position to win more races or to fight for a championship in a McLaren versus where he was? Very questionable. And again, like what, Pato O'Ward sits in 6th, 7th, or 5th in the championship, and Alexander Rossi is just behind him. So it's not like, Pato O'Ward is like really out there in the championship and like he's like fighting for 2nd while Alexander Rossi is 7th, right? They're pretty close together, Now, so another thing too is like Christian Lundgaard going to McLaren, right? That really upset Bobby Rahal. I think it's his name, right? Yeah, Bobby Rahal, one of the owners of the team. And if you go to one of the articles from Marshall Pruitt here, is Bobby Rahal talks a lot about loyalty. Now, at face value, so basically he's saying like, he's big on loyalty, right? He really has loyalty, and he's loyal to a team, to a person, because that's just the way he operates. He gave an example of way back when he was driving. I'll link down the articles if you want to read them. I don't want to bore you with that. But the problem with loyalty is that at face value, it looks like a good feature to have, because you always want someone that's loyal, right? Loyalty is so important. The problem with that is that if that's your default setting every time, you'll always end up being hurt, right? Like if every driver you have this default setting of like, oh, loyalty, man, we want to do so well with them. We're building this thing together. It's great to have when you're in it, but it also makes it hard on you to detach from the driver, from the team, and like look at things bigger picture. Because again, at face value, it's great. It's like when we have a business here, and when I hire an employee, right, I would do my very best to give them the best work environment and to make sure we have the best relationship in terms of like working, and like they're happy and that they're getting all the resources that they need to do their job. And we're going to go on team outings, and we're going to do things together and have team lunches and do this and do that. I'm going to do that every single time with everyone. But I already know that if there's a better opportunity, or if I'm not fulfilling my duties as an owner to say, hey, you're comfortable, you've got the proper training, I'm doing, like, they will leave somewhere else. And even if I do everything right that I possibly can, maybe they're just tired of this place. Maybe they're tired of seeing my face. Maybe they get tired of whatever. Maybe they just want to go try something new. Like, it's going to happen where someone leaves. Now, when you're at a smaller team like Rahal, Letterman Lanigan, because you're a smaller team, you don't have as many resources, right? So this person does a little bit of that, and it's a much tighter knit crew. And because you're not a part of the top 3, top 4, it feels like you're always fighting the bigger guy, and we're doing this all to fight the bigger guy. And when you get a podium, or when you get a top 10 finish, or when you get a top 5 finish, it feels so much more rewarding, because hey, we're this little team going against this much bigger behemoth, and we're all working together, and we're on the trenches, really doing the work. And you really build that small little group of I don't want to say family, because I never call it family, but you build this very strong core team that like everyone's together doing this, right? But at the end of the day, they are an employee. They are contracted to drive for the driver. And again, if the driver just loses interest, if they want to go try their luck somewhere else, if they think they'll get a better fighting chance somewhere else, or don't forget it, guys, drivers still need to make money, right? And it's the same way if you look anywhere else, in NBA, NFL, wherever, like a lot of drivers will take another drive, even if they're not going to fight for championships, or even if they're not going to be competitive in another team. If they're getting paid a bag to go and play somewhere else, they still got to think about their future. They still got bills to pay. They still got family to look over. They still got things that they have to do financially after this career is over to hold them over for the next, 3 years, 10 years, 20 years, 50 years. And then if you have bills, if you have other people you're looking out for, if you have different homes, if you like, there's a lot of other financial responsibility on athletes that a lot of people don't think about, right? So, and again, like all things could be great, but if McLaren said, hey, we're doubling your salary, come over here. You just, when it's money, like as much as you want to be a championship winner and you want to have, you want to win the Indy 500 or you want to win the series, if this is all you have as far as like you're being a driver, you have to make as much money as you can at this given moment, because if a career-ending injury happens, then what, right? If, you know, the team that's paying you all that money in 2 seasons, they leave, then what, right? Or maybe they give the seat to someone else, and there goes the big, you know, it's like there's a lot of things at play, right? But you have to think about, like, you have to be selfish in the sense to say, I need to make as much money as I can right now. And if that means going to another team and bring that thing, and, you know, McLaren also has the big upside of also connecting the IndyCar McLaren drivers to Formula E and to Formula One drivers, right? They cross promote their social media content, and that just gets more eyes on each driver. And again, that builds up their resume, their popularity, their everything, and that could just lead to more funding, more money, more everything. So you can't just look at it in terms of saying, oh well, he has so much better chances at being at you know, Rahal Letterman Lanigan instead of McLaren. It's like, yeah, you know, the odds between both teams as of now, not much of a difference, right? In terms of like, it's not like McLaren's going out there and getting P3 to P7 every single time, right? It's not like they're consistent like that. So in terms of results, I mean, they're about the same in terms of they're not really fighting up there every single time, each time with their 3 sets of drivers. Like that's just not happening. So as far as Alexander Rossi, I would love to see him to go to Meyershank Racing, just because now you have David Malukas, Felix Rosenqvist, and it would be cool to see Alexander Rossi go there, because now you have all X3 McLaren drivers, and if they do better and overall like compete better and end up being higher in the championship points, I mean, the irony in that, you know, like just how comical would that be to see those 3 drivers above all the other 3 McLaren drivers? It would just, trolling wise, it would be fun to see. So should there be any like controversy or drama around these 2 drivers? I don't think so, just because, again, with Alexander Rossi and McLaren, they were set for a 2-year contract. The 2-year contract was fulfilled. It didn't work out because one thing or another, sponsors, whatever, done, right? The contract was fulfilled. And hopefully, you know, Alexander gets another ride. Again, I'd love to see him at Meyershank Racing. I don't think he'll go to Rahal Letterman Lanigan, just because I think on the RLL side, it would seem, the optics wise, it's like they're getting the leftovers of the McLaren deal and going over to, you know, Rahal Letterman Lanigan. It doesn't look good. The same way like when Ferrari let go of Carlos Sainz, I didn't think he'd go to Mercedes, because optics wise, it's like, oh, Mercedes is just picking up the leftovers, even though Carlos Sainz is not leftovers. But since Ferrari poached and took away Hamilton, you wouldn't want to seem like you're just picking up the leftovers of a bad deal gone wrong, you know? Now, again, like, it's not like these 2 were like doing, like, it's not like McLaren talked to Rahal Letterman Lanigan and they're like, hey, let's do a trade and we'll give you some cash on top of that or whatever. Like, it wasn't that. It was, you know, Lundgaard is going to leave, Alexander is going to let go, and, you know, like, there was no communication between the 2. So I don't think he'll go to Rahal Letterman Lanigan, just because it looks like, you know, Bobby Rahal is a little sentimental about the thing, but you never know. You know, this is just speculation. And again, on the Lundgaard side, again, he fulfilled his obligation contractually. Now, again, like maybe on the back end, he was really close with the owner, with Bobby, and he said, yeah, man, we're going to build this team for the next 3, 4, 5 years. And Bobby's like, yeah, man, we're going to do this. And then last minute, he signs with another team. You know, that's internally right there. I can see that. Do you see that all the time with other sports? I mean, look at Kyrie Irving with the Celtics. When the little kid asked him, is he going to re-sign with the Celtics? He's like, yeah, man, I'm not leaving. Then he left. So, you know, this is just what happens with athletes and teams. And, you know, you have the forward-facing perspective of a driver or athlete saying, yeah, I mean, you know, we're going to build up this team, and I'm very confident in our staff and coaching. But on the back end and their agent, they're talking to other teams, trying to get him a better deal, trying to see where the market's at with teams and such. So that's just the way things go. So anyways, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below, and I'll talk to you guys on the next one.